Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a question that should stop every one of us in our tracks. What would you do if $12 trillion suddenly disappeared? Not to million, not billion, 12 trillion. Enough money to rebuild cities, fund generations of education, cure diseases, and reshape the future of humanity. Yet today, we're facing a reality that sounds unbelievable, but is painfully real. $12 trillion is gone. And the most shocking part is not where $12 trillion. Let that number sink in for a moment. It is almost unimaginable. Yet this is the amount that has effectively disappeared from the global economy in ways most people cannot even trace. When we hear figures like this, it's easy to picture a vault filled with stacks of cash guarded by a secret elite, or imagine shadowy actors siphoning wealth away in plain sight. But the truth is far more complex and far more unsettling. This money didn't vanish overnight, nor was it confined to a single location. It moved through a labyrinth of financial systems, hidden behind technical jargon, policy decisions, and market mechanisms that the average person rarely sees. It flowed quietly into speculative investments, emergency bailouts, and inflation-driven asset growth, often designed to stabilize the economy during crises, but with the unintended, or perhaps intended, effect of concentrating wealth at the very top. The first shocking reality is that while markets celebrated record highs, millions of ordinary people watched their savings erode, their wages stagnate, and their purchasing power decline, often without understanding why. The next startling truth is that this $12 trillion represents the power of scale. When money moves at this level, it doesn't just disappear from one account and appear in another, it transforms entire economic structures, influencing interest rates, property values, and corporate strategies in ways that ripple across the world. It is a quiet force, invisible to headlines, yet omnipresent in its consequences. Every stimulus package, every emergency intervention, every market rescue contributed to this invisible shift, highlighting a reality most are reluctant to confront. Wealth is no longer simply money in the bank. It is influence, strategy, and timing. Those who understand these flows can position themselves to adapt and thrive, while those who remain unaware are left reacting to events rather than shaping them. What makes this even more compelling is that it is not the product of a single failure or a single scandal. It is the cumulative result of choices made by governments, financial institutions, and corporations over decades, all aimed at stability, but with consequences few expected to feel personally. The scale is staggering, the mechanisms are subtle, and the impact is immediate for those who are not prepared to navigate a world where $12 trillion can move silently yet shape daily life for millions. When people hear that $12 trillion is missing from the global economy, the immediate assumption is often dramatic. The money must have been stolen, hidden in offshore accounts, or hoarded by secretive elites. That is a story most would expect to hear, the story that fits neatly into headlines and conspiracy theories, but the reality is far more intricate and far more revealing. The money isn't in a single location, nor was it simply taken. It moved into parts of the financial system that are complex, opaque, and largely invisible to everyday citizens. It flowed into speculative markets, government-backed bailouts, and asset classes that most people cannot access, quietly reshaping the way wealth is distributed across the globe. While it may be invisible to the public eye, the effects are undeniable. Property prices skyrocketed, stocks reached unprecedented highs, and corporations benefited from policies designed to stabilize economies, while ordinary families struggled with rising costs and shrinking purchasing power. The hook lies in understanding the subtle mechanisms at play. This isn't theft in the traditional sense. It is a transfer driven by policies, interventions, and decisions that appeared logical on paper but had real consequences. For those who are not prepared, every stimulus package, every interest rate adjustment, every financial maneuver designed to keep the markets alive funneled wealth upward, often invisibly. It was money moving not into pockets but into instruments, stocks, and holdings that grow quietly, almost silently, over time, benefiting those who understand and control access to them. Most people never see these systems, yet they are affected by them daily through the rising cost of living, the inability to accumulate savings, and the widening gap between those who hold assets and those who rely solely on wages. Understanding that the missing $12 trillion is not a simple disappearance but a shift into hidden, often abstract channels changes the narrative entirely. It transforms fear and confusion into insight, opportunity, and awareness. The real story is that money at this scale doesn't vanish randomly. It moves strategically, often in ways the average person cannot access but will feel. Recognizing this is the first step toward reclaiming agency over financial decisions, toward studying how wealth operates behind the headlines, and toward preparing for a system where knowledge is far more powerful than raw currency. This hidden movement challenges assumptions, forces us to question what we think we know about money, and highlights a truth that cannot be ignored. The unseen forces in finance are the ones that shape the visible world. While headlines celebrate record-breaking stock prices and corporate profits, the reality for millions of everyday people is starkly different. The $12 trillion that vanished from the global economy did not disappear into thin air. It flowed into financial systems and markets that are largely inaccessible to the average citizen, creating a growing divide between those who hold assets and those who rely solely on wages. Families across the world are facing rising housing costs, skyrocketing rent, and escalating prices for basic necessities while their wages barely move. The hooks here are subtle, but impossible to ignore. While a handful of investors see their wealth multiply exponentially through stock options, real estate speculation, or government-backed bailouts, ordinary workers experience shrinking purchasing power and financial insecurity. The very mechanisms designed to stabilize the economy often have the opposite effect on those who need it most, reinforcing inequality and creating a sense that the system is stacked against them. It is not a story of laziness or lack of effort. It is a story of imbalance where opportunity is increasingly tied to access rather than skill or labor. This widening gap demonstrates that the consequences of financial decisions and policies extend far beyond charts and balance sheets. They touch every aspect of daily life, from the grocery store to the mortgage payment. What most people fail to see is that the disappearance of $12 trillion is not simply an abstract economic statistic. It is a reflection of how wealth moves invisibly, rewarding ownership over effort, timing over tenacity, and strategy over hard work. The hooks are everywhere if you know where to look. Rising costs, stagnant wages, limited upward mobility, and the frustration of seeing others gain while your own financial situation stagnates. This is why financial literacy is no longer optional. It is essential. Understanding how money circulates, who benefits, and where it is being redirected is crucial for survival and growth. Awareness transforms fear into strategy, and insight into action. By studying these patterns, individuals can identify opportunities within a system that may seem overwhelming, reclaim control over their financial futures, and navigate a world where $12 trillion can disappear from sight, yet impact everyday life in profound and undeniable ways. The story of ordinary people being left behind is not just economic. It is a call to recognize, understand, and adapt to the forces shaping the world around us. The disappearance of $12 trillion from the global economy did not occur by accident. It was the direct result of choices made during crises that shaped the modern financial landscape in ways most people rarely. Consider every major economic downturn, every pandemic, every geopolitical conflict has forced governments and central banks to intervene, often injecting trillions of dollars to stabilize markets and prevent collapse. At first glance, these interventions appear necessary and even heroic, but the hooks lie in the subtle consequences that ripple through society unnoticed. Each decision to print more money, to lower interest rates, or to bail out failing institutions creates an invisible pathway for wealth to shift upward, enriching those who already have access to capital while leaving ordinary citizens struggling to keep up with rising living costs. The reality is that these choices were made with the system in mind, not the individual, and the scale is staggering. Trillions flow through emergency measures, but they rarely reach the people who need them most, instead to propelling asset markets and corporate valuations to unprecedented highs. Every crisis becomes both a catalyst and a conduit for the redistribution of wealth, and the hooks are everywhere once you start looking. While headlines applaud market recovery, most families face growing uncertainty, questioning how to manage everyday expenses while seeing the broader economy appear to flourish for everyone else. Understanding this dynamic is crucial because it demonstrates that the disappearance of $12 trillion is not simply a failure of oversight or mismanagement. It is a consequence of deliberate choices made under pressure, choices that prioritize systemic stability over equitable distribution. Those who grasp these mechanisms can see patterns where others see chaos, recognizing the opportunities that emerge in crises and the vulnerabilities that accompany them. The hidden lesson is that economic policy is not neutral. It actively shapes who benefits, who loses, and who remains vulnerable. Recognizing this allows individuals to move from passive observation to strategic participation, understanding how decisions at the highest levels trickle down to affect daily life, personal finances, and long-term security. Each crisis exposes the uneven ways wealth flows, revealing the systems that elevate some while leaving many behind. And the hooks are embedded in every policy, every market reaction, and every headline. By paying attention to these choices and their consequences, individuals can equip themselves with the insight needed to navigate uncertainty, anticipate shifts, and take control of their financial trajectory even when trillions move silently around them. Understanding where money flows transforms confusion and fear into insight and opportunity, and this is the hidden lesson behind the disappearance of $12 trillion. Most people assume that the economy operates like a simple machine, where effort directly equals reward and hard work automatically results in financial security. The reality is far more complex, and the hooks are everywhere. Once you start looking, money at this scale does not simply sit idle. It moves strategically, invisibly, and often in ways that benefit those with knowledge, access, and foresight. Financial literacy becomes the most powerful tool an individual can possess because it allows you to see beyond the headlines, to understand the patterns that determine who gains, who loses, and why. Every government bailout, every market intervention, and every corporate windfall creates ripples that extend far beyond the immediate transaction, affecting interest rates, asset prices, and consumer costs in ways most people never notice. Recognizing these flows allows individuals to identify opportunities, anticipate shifts, and protect themselves from decisions made in systems they do not fully control. The hooks are subtle but critical. While the general public may react to inflation, rising rents, or stock market fluctuations, informed individuals see these movements as signals, as indicators of where resources are concentrating and how to position themselves strategically. Knowledge becomes not just a defensive mechanism, but a proactive one, offering a chance to participate in the economy with awareness rather than passively bearing its consequences. Understanding financial systems, investment strategies, and economic policy equips people to make informed choices, to grow wealth in ways that align with systemic trends, and to navigate periods of volatility without panic. It is not about predicting every outcome, but about seeing the broader currents that guide capital, recognizing how wealth accumulates, and knowing how to respond effectively. In a world where trillions of dollars can shift invisibly, the difference between vulnerability and empowerment often comes down to awareness, preparation, and insight. Every headline about economic growth, market fluctuations, or corporate profits becomes more than information. It becomes intelligence, a tool to understand the hidden forces shaping daily life and long-term prospects. By committing to financial literacy and awareness, individuals can turn what seems like chaos into clarity, transforming uncertainty into opportunity and gaining control in a system where knowledge is the most valuable currency. Every crisis in history has created two kinds of people: those who wait for circumstances to return to normal, and those who use disruption as a launching pad to grow, adapt, and rise above. The disappearance of $12 trillion from the global economy is not merely a story of loss. It is a wake-up call that highlights where opportunity and preparation intersect. The hooks are clear, while many focus on fear, confusion, or what has been taken from them. Those who succeed notice patterns, anticipate shifts, and position themselves to take advantage of the changes occurring in real time. The world does not pause when financial systems wobble, supply chains fracture, or markets fluctuate. It moves, and those who are alert can harness the momentum. Crises accelerate trends that might otherwise take decades to unfold, and within those accelerated shifts lie openings for growth, innovation, and leadership. Understanding this dynamic requires rejecting the illusion that financial systems operate in ways that are fair or predictable for everyone. Money does not flow evenly. Opportunity does not present itself equally. And advantages are often secured by knowledge, preparation, and decisive action. The disappearance of trillions is a stark example. Wealth is being transferred, markets are being shaped, and systems are evolving, often invisibly, while the average person remains unaware. The motivational hook lies in this truth. Being informed, adaptable, and proactive allows individuals to ride the waves that unsettle others, turning what appears to be chaos into a foundation for long-term growth. The lessons embedded in crises are not theoretical, they are practical and immediate. They teach which skills are valuable, which investments are resilient, and which decisions will position someone to thrive even as uncertainty dominates headlines. It is a reminder that the real power is not in resisting change, but in understanding it, leveraging it, and acting decisively within it. By observing the flow of money, the impact of policy, and the behavior of markets, individuals can transform what seems like loss into a map for opportunity. While $12 trillion may move silently through the system, creating disparities that are easy to overlook, The informed person sees a chance to learn, grow, and gain an edge where others see only uncertainty. In times of upheaval, the difference between stagnation and advancement is mindset, preparation, and the willingness to act when others hesitate. And those who grasp this principle turn disruption into an advantage that lasts far beyond the crisis itself.